Forcing people out of perfectly good health care plans. Large employers are now desperate to avoid a 40% Obamacare Cadillac tax. So these companies right now are looking for ways to shift the costs to the workers. The so-called Cadillac Tax will affect health care plans that spend more than $10,000 a year per worker. And under the one-size-fits-all of Obamacare, these plans, of course, are frowned upon. Meantime, in Minneapolis, a clinic is forced to shut down. Why? It can no longer afford to operate because of the high cost of Obamacare.
For about 3,000 people, this is a life-changing letter. They're the patients who still get their medical care here at the NIP Medical Clinic in Minneapolis.
Still an ongoing need. We believe that wholeheartedly here. The problem is making sure we have cash flow to continue to do this. And it's heartbreaking because these are quality services.
Mostly volunteer healthcare professionals have treated Minnesota's uninsured here since 1972. But now, CEO and President Patsy Bartley says the Affordable Care Act is forcing her to close. That's due to far fewer patients, and it's also because some mandates in the ACA are just too expensive.
There you go. So just like that, reliable, affordable health care for thousands of people is gone. Poof! Thanks to Obamacare. But the bureaucrats in Washington know what's right. Right? They know what they're doing, correct? Joining me now, private medicine advocate and Obamacare expert and Daily Ledger contributor, Patricia Newman. Patty, we have been told by CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, that they have all the emails that are requested by Congress. Now we find out that probably they actually do not. This sounds very familiar to me.
Well, yeah, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago where CMS reported to the National Archives that even though Marilyn Tavenner had deleted some emails, she had told her subordinates to make sure and keep copies of those emails, and they were probably going to recuperate most of them. Well, we just found out that letter kind of contradicts the latest finding, which is Tavenner directly asked the Director of Communications at CMS, Julie Bataille, she asked her to delete a whole chain of emails between Tavenner, White House officials, and one of the subcontractors that they're investigating with the launch of healthcare.gov. So this latest finding completely contradicts the letter that CMS sent to National Archives, and they're just lying at this point.
It's amazing. It's just like Lois Lerner. It's destruction of evidence. And, you know, if this happens in the real world, you could go to jail for something like this. It's just stunning. Meantime, a couple of states in the western portion of the United States are now having to deal with some Obamacare suppliers saying, see you later?
Yeah, this is really kind of frustrating to us personally because this company called Sea Change Insurance, which has a focus primarily on small businesses that have anywhere from, I believe, 5 to 50 employees. And what they provide is a policy that is a large deductible, but with that large deductible, you have a smaller premium. These are normally HSA compliant and very friendly to small employers.
Right.
Well, they are leaving California and Colorado because they just cannot afford to do business.
So what's that going to mean to the small employers who use these services?
Well, now you have less and less options for your coverage of your employees, and it seems to me that as I see the options shrinking, the only thing that's left are all these companies that somehow were at the table when Obamacare was being formed. So we have Kaiser, we have United Healthcare, we have Aetna, and these are the large groups that you want to push everybody into, and they have smaller panels, they don't have private practices as part of their network. That was one of the beauties of of sea change was they used the Cigna PPO network, which was a nice sizable group of professionals that were a part of the policy, and now you're going to lose that too.
Yeah, and those bigger companies also realize they have the taxpayer bailout just in case, so they're going to make money either way on this thing at our expense. You know, the official numbers that were brought out by the administration at the end of open enrollment phase 1, 8 million, they were jumping in circles of joy regarding this, but we all knew in our hearts that that number is not going to be accurate. It has to settle in the downward direction, and it looks like it is.
It is. It is kind of funny. Have you noticed that they have not been talking about these numbers lately? I mean, this was what our JV president was celebrating right after open enrollment, and now all quiet. Why? Because insurers are reporting now back with their numbers. One of them, the third largest in the country, Aetna, they just reported that in May they had 720,000 signups. Yeah. Well, by June they had 600,000 that had actually paid their premiums. They are expecting by the end of the year to go down as much as to 500,000. Now, if they, as a large company, represent what the market out there for insurers are, because other insurers are not being as candid with those figures. They are telling us, yeah, there's attrition, but not quite giving us the numbers. But Aetna was pretty solid in giving that information. So that would represent 30% of the market, 30% of sign-ups that are going to go away. That would bring that 8 million sign-up to a 5,600,000. Now, if you add to that, that recently they also reported there were 300,000 of those that had inconsistencies in their immigration status that are going to lose their policies, that drops it down to 5,300,000. That is nowhere near the 7 million that Obama said we needed to make this work.
Right, and also, we still don't know what percentage of those people, and I bet you it's a high percentage, weren't people who didn't have coverage, weren't these people, you know, in the gaps as they talked about, the uninsured. How many of those people had perfectly good health care plans and coverage and were forced into Obamacare because they had it taken away by Obamacare?
Well, you know, 80% of us were all very happy about it. Now, remember that also after the Helbig decision, there may be more people not paying their premiums because they're going to lose their subsidies. So this is headed to that death spiral that we talked about, because the government's going to try to make this work, and the only way they can make it work is taxing more, increasing premiums, then less people can afford it, and there you go. The whole private health insurance sector is going to go down the drain.
Yeah, and at the bottom of that spiral is single payer.
Yes, it is.
Patty, thanks.
Thanks.
Coming up next, Governor Moonbeam and the dog days of summer as the Daily Ledger continues.